He kept begging for help, but onlookers were busy filming this young boy's death after he was hit by a state-run bus in Koppal in Karnataka. Campaigning for 117 assembly seats in Punjab and 40 seats in the state of Goa comes to an end. The states are set for polling on the 4th of February. In a big upset for the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate, a special court in Delhi acquits the Maran brothers and the others accused in the Aircel Maxis case. An outrageous lesson in Maharashtra textbooks. The book lists ugliness and disability among reasons for dowry demands made to parents of a bride. We start with what's happening off the Chennai coast. An oil spill off the coast of Tamil Nadu is threatening to become India's biggest environmental disaster as cleanup efforts enter day 5. Environmentalists and government agencies both are running out of options. Now, this is day 6 of that massive oil spill there. And remember, on Saturday, 2 ships collided near Ennore dock, spilling an estimated 50 tons of oil-based lubricant into the Bay of Bengal. According to experts, nearly 20 tons of sludge is required to be cleaned up. Many are worried that this could perhaps be India's biggest environmental disaster in the seas as the spill spreads over kilometers, and it's expanding, in fact, by the wind-strong currents. Meanwhile, there are questions of negligence which are still unanswered with the politicians in Tamil Nadu. They're calling for a thorough probe into this incident.
It's day 5 of the massive oil spill off the coast of Tamil Nadu, and the environmental crisis is no closer to ending. On Saturday, 2 ships collided near Ennore docks, spilling an estimated 50 tons of oil-based lubricant into the Bay of Bengal. According to experts, nearly 20 tons of sludge required to be cleaned up.
3 of the biggest challenges in the spill are the nature of the lubricant, which is difficult to clean up, weather and the strong sea currents, and lastly, the massive environmental impact on the rich marine life in the area.
Their fears are justified. Many are worried that this could be perhaps India's biggest environmental disaster as the spill spreads over hundreds of kilometers, aided by the wind-strong currents.
All efforts has gone in with coordination, and maybe by today evening or tomorrow, we will be able to get the maximum out of this place. Our other team is there on the other 10, 11 places where the beaches are affected. They are removing the sand filled with oil. But here the thick slug oil is there, which we are removing manually. Our pumps have been used, pumps are getting choked.
Meanwhile, questions of negligence are yet unanswered, with Tamil Nadu politicians demanding a thorough probe into the accident.
Initially, the port authorities were in a denial. Then after 3 days, they have said that there is an oil spill and they're trying to contain it. But the government agencies have not come together actually to clear up the mess. And the spill has reached the Chennai beaches even 35 kilometers away.
The region is rich in marine life, and while the long-term costs are hard to determine, the short-term implications are worrying for people living along the coast. The spill has already impacted the coastal economy, and if the cleanup doesn't happen soon, it could have ruinous results. Bureau Report, WION.
Now let's try and understand as to how exactly does an oil spill occur. It occurs when crude oil is accidentally released into a water body by either an oil tanker, refinery storage facility, an underwater pipeline is leaked, or offshore oil drilling rigs. Now, when an oil spill occurs, this oil floats and forms a millimeter thick layer on the surface of the water. Now, over the next few minutes, we're going to try and understand clearly as to what exactly is happening in Tamil Nadu with this oil spill. Joining me right now is Vimlendu Jha. He's a water conservationist and environmentalist, joining me live from Delhi. Thanks so much, Vimlendu, for speaking to us here on Your World Tonight. First of all, let's try and understand if you can throw some light on how grave is the threat due to this oil spill.
Thank you. There is short-term, medium-term, and long-term impact of this oil spill. So when your reporter said that this would be one of the worst environmental disasters in the sea, it might just be because the impact is already visible. We've actually seen turtles, olive ridley turtles, found dead at the shore in Chennai. We're actually talking about a very, very fragile marine biodiversity. And Chennai, by the way, Chennai entire coastline is very, very rich. There are almost 500 fish species. So it's not just about ecology. One is, of course, the impact that it will have on ecology and people depend on that, but also the entire food chain that it enters. Because, we're talking about almost 45 kilometers of coastline, which is directly impacted because of this oil spill. And then we talk about benzene and hydrocarbon, because oil spill primarily means that oil actually contains chemicals and toxins, and that enters your food chain. So it's a public health disaster that we are actually talking about, and there is very little conversation in the government around it. Imagine day 6, and we're actually sitting over it and wondering how much oil was actually spilled and how should we actually contain it. So it's a very, very dangerous proposition.
All right, Vimlendu, do stay with me. Emma Fatima of the WWF is joining us. She's a marine programmer. Thanks, Emma, so much for joining us here. In most of these cases, we've seen when the marine life is threatened, either we've talked about it earlier, when, dead whales show up on the shore. It's almost always reported by the local fishermen. In this case as well, we're seeing the same thing. Give us a sense of, to what extent this oil spill could really damage the marine life in this particular area.
Hello?
Yes, Emma, we can hear you.
Okay, so it's a national disaster, and especially now the turtle season is on. So there are olive ridleys that migrate during this period of time to Odisha to nest in mass. And you also see sporadic nesting occurring throughout the coastal area of India. So they have been massively affected, and you must have got reports of large number of sea turtles being stranded and found dead during the rescue period and oil cleaning up mission. Besides that, there are other impacts as well on the marine fauna, like on the corals and the dolphins and mangroves. They enter for long term in the food chain and affect the marine ecology. So, and given this scenario, it is essential that the government thinks about the coastal development plan and the idea it has to develop more than 200 number of ports across India, and we do not have any immediate ability to respond to such coastal disasters.
All right, Emma, do stay with us. Vimlendu, coming back to you. Now, from what you both are telling us and our viewers here, several errors that one can clearly see, from reporting by fishermen to slow reaction time, also very importantly, the lack of preparedness on the part of these authorities. So, this is not just one issue that we're dealing with, but lapses on various levels.
Absolutely right. As in, at the end of the day, when we're talking about reporting by a fisherman of a dead whale, it's a very, very different story versus here we're talking about two big, large containers bumping into each other, creating an accident, and that goes unreported, and that causes the oil spill. That's on day 1, but imagine right now the bickering, the flop that is actually happening on day 6. In their ministers saying there's no oil spill. We haven't really heard a single word from our India's the federal environment minister, Mr. Anil Dave. So it also talks about some kind of negligence, some kind of how do we prioritize something? Do we only wake up when there's death of human beings, or we also wake up when indirectly it impacts human life as well. Because in the long run, a dead fish or a dead turtle also impacts our food chain. So
Right.
at various levels, failure of governance, yes, we're talking about how that happens. Also look at the visuals that you were showing and that we've been seeing. Volunteers have been cleaning the shore using bare hands. So it's the pathetic situation. It's an accident. No emergency button has been pressed by state as yet.
Right.
Volunteers were cleaning the shore with buckets.
Right. Vimlendu, do stay with me. I'll also get in Mr. Sanjeev Kumar Kanchan into this discussion here. He's an environmentalist from the CSE joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much, Mr. Kanchan. I would like to start by asking you, we are talking about the lack of preparedness, the reporting that has happened and the, much delayed reaction. It's come very late, and whatever being done by panelists say it's too little. Now, for a country like India, which has such a vast coastline, shouldn't we have better systems in place?
Yes, you're very right. Incident had happened, and after 5 days, we are still into cleaning the things. And to precise, the first thing that comes in mind is that in the beginning, what I got from reporters is 1 ton oil was spilled, and now we have recovered already 25 or 30 tons or more, and still the process is continued. So first thing is we must identify or ensure how much amount has been spilled so that we can understand its implications, how much area has been contaminated and all. This is just to say, I mean, if we are prepared to clean up the things right, we have to have these numbers and the implications that we can predict or we can think about. So far, we know that National Oil Spill Disaster Plan has been prepared. There has been policy and different levels, regional level, state level, and at different levels there has been groups has been made, acting authority has been made. They meet every 3 months or 6 months on different levels. But this policy, the plan has been just a plan. Nothing has been implemented. Or actually on the ground, if it was supposed to be implemented, but it didn't. So right now, even after a spill, you see that these people are not able to clean up so actively.
All right.
Actually, the Coast Guard and all, they should have the ability to do at least whatever quick thing they could have done.
Absolutely. Some standard operating procedures in case of such a disaster like an oil spill, which has now turned out to be this massive incident. Mr. R.K. Radhakrishnan, Associate Editor with The Frontline, is joining me right now from Chennai. Sir, thank you so much for speaking to us here on WION. What is it that you're hearing? Because you're in Chennai, in the middle of all of it. What's the latest, and by when do you think the situation will be brought under control?
The situation will be brought under control when the ocean currents carry the rest of the oil away into the sea at some point of time, or washes it ashore. As the speaker before me had pointed out, there is absolutely a dearth of a plan being put into action at any place. Yes, there is a regional Coast Guard headquarters here. They are trying their best, but they are handicapped by lack of personnel, lack of proper and adequate equipment, and this is very, very close to the shore, so you cannot actually employ a ship. And ballast cleaning, the process of cleaning out a cargo ship inside has been going on throughout the Indian coast, across the coastline, the 7,000-kilometer coastline, every day in and day out. Not one agency has the capability to find out and find these vessels. This is a typical third world situation, and we are actually living in a situation where we have absolutely no clue about this. We are on the land, so we don't understand this, but the seas are getting polluted around India, getting polluted day in and day out because of this ballast cleaning operation, apart from oil slicks like this.
Right. Vimlendu, let me come to you for a last reaction. We're talking about oil spilling into the water, which also affects the marine life, and in turn, the entire food chain, in a sense, gets contaminated. So this is essentially not just a loss for the marine life or for the fishermen, but even people who are not, directly living close to the waters over there.
Absolutely right. And that's the reason why, as in there's been reports coming from the ground saying that people are refusing to buy fish last couple of days. And rightly so, because, right now, we know that in the entire coastal area, fish or and the produce from the sea is the main source of food, is the staple diet in a way. And when that gets contaminated, that actually means that human life gets contaminated. So this disaster is not just from a romantic ecological point of view, but also from survival and public health.
Right.
It's a different kind of a reaction and different kind of a preparedness, and not just an ecological plan, but a public health plan, a disaster plan in place as well.
Absolutely. Let's just hope the authorities are listening. And, so many reports out there. Of course, it's only come into, to light just a few days ago, but only after reports came out that it's now, large in scale and magnitude. Let's end this discussion now. That's all the time we have for. Thanks so much, Vimlendu Jha, Mr. Sanjeev Kumar Kanchan, R.K. Adhakrishnan, and Ms. Emma Fatima for joining us on the broadcast. Well, now we move on to some shocking news coming in from the state of Karnataka in India, where a teenager who was run over by a bus was left to die, even as onlookers clicked pictures on their mobile phones, taking videos instead of helping him. Anwar Ali, as the victim has been identified, was hit by a speeding state-run bus in Koppal district on Wednesday morning. He pleaded with people to take him to the hospital, but nobody came forward to help him, reportedly fearing harassment by the police and hospital. The ambulance then arrived at the scene about 25 minutes later to take him to the hospital, where this boy succumbed to his injuries. Well, that's what we're tracking. We're going to try and get you some perspective on the story of shocking apathy that has come to light from the state of Karnataka. This boy, in fact, a young boy who was a cyclist, according to reports, he was hit, and then nobody came forward really to help this young boy. He was lying there for several minutes, bleeding to death, but onlookers never bothered to really step forward and to help him out. Instead, they stood there and took videos and pictures of this boy. And when the ambulance was called, in fact, most of the damage had been done. He had almost bled to death. Let me go across to my colleague Nishchita Virendra, who's joining us with the latest details on this. Nishchita, as we're talking about, this is a case of shocking apathy. It's really sad to see that even after the Good Samaritan law being in place, people either maybe are still unaware or they're just perhaps not interested in helping.
Absolutely. In fact, this is not the first time that Karnataka has seen an incident like this, whether it is Anwar Ali's case, whether it is another case of Burhan last night in the Yadgir, or for that matter, the two cops who lost their lives on the streets of Mysuru last week, or for that matter, even a year back, how a boy called Harish was pleading for help on the streets of Bengaluru and was requesting the passers-by to help him, give him some water, but no help came his way. And then you had the government step in and pass the Good Samaritan Act because they felt that the fear of law, the fear of being entangled in legal hassles is what was preventing and was deterring these people from acting. But the reaction that we have seen in the last 1 week of the onlookers removing their cameras, shooting the ordeal, the bloodied ordeal of these poor victims of accidents has really thrown a whole new perspective in this case. And to speak more on this, right here I'm joined in by Ms. Brinda Adige, who is an activist and who has been fairly vocal on several human rights issues, and if nothing, this is definitely one such human rights issue. I would like to ask her, Ms. Brinda Adige, it's very easy for an individual to say that they were scared of the law or the police did not do enough. We are very quick at pointing fingers. Do you think that argument holds basis in this particular case, where people were seen pulling out their phones, shooting for several minutes?
I don't think this argument holds water at all, simply because we are looking at almost a direct form of indifference, apathy and cruelty. There is a life that is ebbing away and there are people standing there filming it, clicking photographs, taking selfies, but not willing to even call the ambulance, call the police, or help this person out from there. This just goes to show that people are not simply insensitive or apathetic to a life that is getting lost, but are enjoying a form of violence, are happy to be party to an aggression, are absolutely not concerned that human life with its dignity holds some respect and some value. And that is not simply sad, it is very scary.
It's extremely scary, and you have spoken about having laws being brought in to check something like this. Do not just book the offender, but also those who are acting as spectators, those who are enjoying this as if it's a film scene of sorts. But can really law curb something like this? An innate feeling of an individual to enjoy someone else's grief and pain in such a manner. Can law really make a change in that?
I may not be able to argue on the legal part of it, but I'm asking as a common person, if I'm an onlooker and looking at something like this, am I not abetting somebody's torture and cruelty and somebody's death? Am I not going to be responsible for it by law? And even if a law of that nature doesn't come to punish an onlooker, there should be some space that allows this person accountable for letting this life to ebb away, for not helping out this human being who can be helped. There is no excuse at all in this age of technology, in this age when we can ask for any vehicle over there to go, simply scared about laws, scared about the police or the tedious cumbersome processes in the court is an absolute excuse which I don't accept. It just goes to show people are willing to go on Twitter and Facebook the whole time, and other people clicking like and dislike to this kind of a cruelty and aggression, and it is not taking responsibility for human life, not taking responsibility for your fellow human being.
Right, well, there you have it. It seems like people almost enjoyed watching these two individuals who were suffering, and that is the popular sentiment really coming through. On one hand, road accidents are not really new to a country like India.
Right.
We record one of the highest number of road accidents in the world. As per statistics from the ministry itself, it is said that one person dies every 4 minutes on the streets of the country. But such level of public apathy, almost sadistically enjoying the grief of a victim, that really goes on to show that there's a whole new perspective that was not taken into consideration before the Good Samaritan bill was passed by the Karnataka Legislative Assembly.
Right. In fact, it's really unfathomable, Nishchita, to even think of something like this. But it happens everywhere in the country. This is, of course, not the first time it's happened in Karnataka, as you pointed out. We leave it at that. Thanks so much for joining us there, and also with the guest perspective. We're going to take a very short break here on Your World Tonight. We'll be back with lots more news and updates. Stay with us.